Hello and welcome to 10 Lessons Learned, where we talk to interesting people from all over the world to dispense their wisdom for your career, business and life, in order to make the world a little wiser, lesson by lesson. My name is Robert Hossery and I'm your host for this episode. Today's guest, all the way from the UK, is Samir Domah. Samir has spent a lot of time in corporate life. He is currently a trainer, but you know what? Let's let Samir tell us all about that. Samir, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Thank you, Robert. Hi, everyone. I'm Samir. I've been blessed to have a very nice career in data and say FMCG. But if you've in your local supermarket, any product on the shelf, I've probably touched it in some capacity or played a role in it being there. And now I run my own data insight consultancy, and alongside that, after a few lessons that I've learned in my career, I'm trying to coach others to not make the same mistakes I have. So as part of my coaching, my book, and a few other little bits, I try to live my life the best I can and help others along the way as well.
And you can understand why we've asked Samir to be a guest on our show, because that is pretty much the mission of 10 Lessons. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to live their best life and learn from our mistakes. And I believe, Samir, this is what you're doing. You're spreading your wisdom to the people you coach.
Absolutely. As I've had I say it this way, I've had the pleasure of making many mistakes in my career. If you don't stop and fail, it's a learning. Well, there's no such thing as failure, there's a learning. So for me, absolutely, if I can go back and help someone else not fall down the little rabbit holes that I did, then that's a job well done.
Absolutely correct. This is what all of us here on 10 Lessons, we all have the same mission. This is our passion. So before we start on your lessons, let me ask you this question. If you had the opportunity, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
That what feels like pressure at the moment, you will turn around in a few years and laugh at that problem and go, I did that, absolutely no trouble. So I would then use that to go, look, don't stress about things because it's all going to work out. It's all part of the growth.
It is all part of the growth. And isn't it amazing how in our youth we stress about the most insignificant things? And I've told this to many people I've worked with. You've been through worse, you survived, you'll survive this.
You survived 100% of your worst days or 100% of your bad days, I think is the Instagram quote that I always keep seeing. So, and that is absolutely true. Yeah, I've lost many a night's sleep that I wish I could get back, knowing that it was all going to work out.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all? All right, well, look, let's get started on your first lesson. Lesson number 1. Make it count. I like that because that's a mantra that I use. But what do you mean by make it count?
So, as part of writing my book, in the opening line of my book, or my chapter in my book, is your chances of being born are 1 in 400 quadrillion, which for those of you who don't know what a quadrillion is, that's 400 followed by 18 zeros. That's a lot of zeros. And that is just the probability of you taking your first breath and making it out, forget getting to 40, 50, 60, anything else. That doesn't then take in the probability of your parents being born or them meeting each other, your grandparents, and all the way there. So yeah, it's actually always pretty hard to put a real true number on what it is to be born. And I just think when you have such luck in a way to be on this earth, that we have a duty to make sure we live it the best we can and that you take every chance and every opportunity. And I don't want to die one day and be in front of my maker and go, oh, do you know what? I watched Netflix for the 40 years or the 50 years that you gave me. I did everything I could. And more importantly, that, I leave the world in a better place than when I came into it. And I think that's super important.
Isn't that? That is probably the most important thing for a lot of human beings, but they don't understand it. Leave the world a little better than you found it. And that could just mean smiling at someone as you're walking past them on the street. But kindness, show kindness, leave the world better. I agree with you, Samir. This is something that I only learned later in life.
Yeah.
So, I wished I'd learned that lesson when I was younger, but that would have helped me a lot, and it would have left the world a little better back in those days than I had found it. But hey, I'm making up for it now.
So, and this is the thing as well, right? It's in the book, largely in Atomic Habits, but it was Dale Stone Brailsford, British Cycling, who came up with the aggregation of marginal gains. If you don't, I'm not saying people shouldn't try to be 100% good, absolutely should. But, little 1% by everyone makes a big difference to the whole world. So, no one's saying you should go and buy free coffees every day for 10 people or, go up weeds in all your neighbours' gardens. But just doing that one little bit perpetuates not only your own 1%, but everyone else to do 1%. And, you can kind of feel you can turn this juggernaut around pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't want to dwell on this as much as you and I can talk about this forever. But what I've observed is that kindness seems to be a mantra for the younger generation. The boomers, the Gen Xers, we've forgotten that kindness is what fuels the world. And I think this is just me ranting now, but I think what is being seen around the world now is the younger generation are just saying, you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be an asshole. Let's all be nice to each other. And it fills me with hope. That's all I can say. It fills me with hope. All right, let's move on to lesson number 2. Your value isn't defined by the position you are in now. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So this one for me, it comes from a great lesson. As part of my one of my last sort of corporate roles, I was sat in a room with a CEO who spoke to me in third person and was very shouty and condescending. And despite not having understood the information on the screen, in a room full of people, chose to tear me down. And I was like, that doesn't feel great. And I don't feel valued. And amazingly, almost 12 months on to the day, I was sat in a different room with one of my clients, and to hear someone go, do you know what, we can't have this conversation without Samir being there because he's world class at what he does. And that phrase, in that moment, the person that said it probably made it as a flagrant remark, but that is one of the most standout moments for me in the last 10 years. Not because I pride myself on being world class, is that my value was different. I was the same person, the same skill set that I had 12 months ago, but in someone else's eyes, I was world class. So sometimes, when you don't feel good, I'm not, trying to get everyone to quit their jobs and go do other things right now and not work on themselves. Please don't take that as a lesson. But absolutely understand if you're not feeling great in a role or in a business, it's not necessarily always a reflection on you. It can sometimes just be you need to be in a different room, you need to be in a different house, and all of a sudden the same things that make you bad in one place can make you incredible somewhere else. And we thought, just to, I guess to go back a lesson in a way, good perpetuates good. Normally, if you're in a house where you feel good, you can then start to feel even better and do some greater things. So that's what I meant by that one.
Well, I couldn't agree more as far as you're not defined. And once again, it took me a long time to learn this. I defined myself by my position. Grandiose titles, big offices, whatever, I would chase it. But that wasn't who I was. And it took a long time to learn that. Like I've had experiences like you've had with puffed up peacocks thumping desks saying, I don't really care what you are. You're a human being. I'm a human being. We're both being paid to do a job. Yeah. So shut the fuck up, basically. It doesn't take much to show respect. It doesn't take much to show appreciation for someone who works with you. So I hear you, and you are not defined by your position. I agree with that. I mean, that is a very, very powerful lesson, but not too many people learn it early enough.
I
And
was
I'll
about to say,
repeat it. Your value is not defined by the position you are in now.
I think that's absolutely, and I think the one thing I'd add to that is, and you touched on it, is a lot of people realize it later on because you have a moment, we all have a moment in our lives where we go, actually, all that noise isn't what is important to me. My values actually lie here. So if I had to, another thing I'd probably say to my 20-year-old self is figure out the things that matter to you as a person now, and let that be your satellite navigation to where you want to land, because everything else is just noise on the way otherwise.
Absolutely. I'm going to share a little anecdote. Whether it makes the cut or not doesn't matter, but I'm going to share a little anecdote. I work for this organization that had a very toxic person in there who created other toxic people. And that created a lot of noise. And so with all this noise going around, you couldn't see what was wrong with the business. Once we got rid of the toxic person, we could see the errors being made in different areas of the business, and we could focus on them and fix them. And the toxicity came from them feeling important in their position. So it's not only something that affects you personally and affects the people around you. In a corporate environment, it affects the business. It creates that noise. It creates a totally different culture. So you can't see what's going on. Once you get rid of the noise, it works.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I love this lesson.
Thank you. So I fully agree. I think, especially as you get higher up the hierarchy, people's energies go down the chain quite quickly, and it's never always there. It adds speed bumps to the road, which I don't always think need to be there.
I agree. Yeah. Being a corporate guy for so long, I agree. Okay, let's look at lesson number 3. Interesting. Lesson number 3, even your toughest foe are soft somewhere else. Tell me what you mean by that.
I think it's almost a roll on from what we're just talking, really, of all these huffy peacocks, as we call them. I've always lived by the mantra of when they go home, they're not an arsehole to their kids or to their mum or whoever.
You would hope.
You would hope. You would hope. There's probably one or two I think might actually be, but I think generally speaking, people aren't. And I think sometimes it's worth reminding yourselves that in those situations, they're actually finding ways of tapping into those sides really can change a relationship or change people. And where I learnt this is I had a director at one of the retailers who I used to work with shout at everyone, really hot-headed, really go for you. And then I found out that he was actually from Malta. So I learned how to say, hey, how are you in Maltese? And one day I just walked past and I was like, kifinti. And he's like, And then he took a step back and it changed our dynamic ever since. And ever since then, he sees me, I see him years from now in, loads of different conferences. I'm like, kifinti. And he's like, mush hazin. And it's just this little bit of banter that we have. And it's one little moment like that, one little phrase, two words meant something else to him somewhere else and softened him completely. So I think there's massive bits of, sometimes it's, I guess, contradicting what we've just said of kind of taking a step back from tough people or tough personalities. Sometimes it's worth finding what softens the egg to lean into it and find ways of breaking them down.
Do you know what I hear? Because what you just said strikes a chord. What I hear is take the time to find out about people. Take the time to figure out, who the person is you're interacting with and see if there's any common ground. Or if not, See if you can create common ground, because you're right. There is a soft spot. There should be a soft spot in almost everybody. And it's up to you to find the soft spot in those people that you want to have a working relationship with, a romantic relationship with. I mean, what you've just said, Samir, goes beyond corporate life. It goes into daily life, every day. You don't know what someone's going through, and you don't know what you can do that will soften the relationship between you unless you listen, you learn, you try. This is what I heard. How far off the mark am I?
I think it's great because I think you've actually pulled together quite a few different threads that we've been talking about, right? Because on one side I go, we talk about doing, aggregation of marginal gains and your one good bit and being good and focus on being good. You don't meet hardness with hardness. So, it absolutely leans into that lesson itself. But also there is, I guess, a coaching principle, but the one that we work with, or I work with, is the topic is not the agenda. And by that, I mean, is that people often turn up going, do you know what? I'm really stressed out, or I need help with time management. And actually what it is, it's not time management that's the problem. It's you have too much on your plate. There's something else underneath that is causing the pain that you need to unearth. And I think much in the same vein, right, of someone being difficult is that they don't choose to be difficult. They're molded in that way. And it's about finding what causes that pressure point.
Yeah, I see that. I like that. Again, something that took years to learn. One of our other hosts, Seba, one of his all-time favorite lessons is don't judge until you understand. And that's pretty much what we're talking about. All right. Now, that was great. That was really, really good. All right. Let's move on to lesson number 4. When I read this, it just spoke to me, Samir. Clarity beats complexity. This is wonderful. Talk to me about that.
And it's one of the best lessons I've learned through my career, of especially in the data world. We have a desire to sometimes either boil the ocean or put everything on a slide or everything in a PowerPoint, everything in a document. And what happens is you give it to someone to read and they look at it and they go, I don't understand anything you put on there. And when you think about cultures, you think about strategies where you really need everyone to buy into it. Often simplifying down something into a really clear set of principles or words that people can go, I remember that, or I can live by this. It is everything. I've sat in enough meetings where people go through stuff line by line by line in a spreadsheet, and you're like, just give the headlines and worry about the detail later.
Yeah. As an analyst for most of my career, it's easy to go through the data. It's easy to go through and point out, the highs, the lows, the outliers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But unless you can boil it down into very clear, concise points and make it as simple as possible, you will lose your audience, you will lose the momentum, and you will lose the backing of the people you're trying to convince.
Yeah, and I think it's one of these ones as well where, like, especially around the world of data, we have a habit, if you're not experienced enough sometimes, to go, I'm going to tell you everything that I found in the data, as opposed to telling people the thing that they need to know. Yeah. And I've seen it happen so many times that, it can really be the difference between the same data set absolutely boring someone and absolutely boring a room full of people when you present the strategy, to people leaving that room bouncing, going, this is something I believe in, this is something I absolutely want to go for.
Well, this goes back to the point we just made a few minutes ago, which is noise.
Yeah.
That the amount of data you're going to present, the amount of information you're going to give is noise. Cut through the noise, find out what those nuggets are that need to be addressed, and focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it go wrong far too many times, or not as exciting too many times as something should be. And there's definitely, especially analysts, we often make the mistakes that people can read data the same way we do. So translate it for everyone else.
Exactly. Okay, so lesson number 5. Now, as a sales professional, this spoke to me as well. Lesson number 5, it's easy to overcomplicate your customer. And it is I found the most successful sales calls I ever had is when I shut the hell up and let the customer talk. So tell me about overcomplicating customers.
Yeah, I think actually this almost comes from a slightly different angle. So as a bit of a stat for you, Tesco in the UK have 22 to 24 million card holding customers in their loyalty card. But they actually only boil this down to 5 groups of people. Often in a world now where we try to, personalize everything for everyone all the time, your customers sometimes are actually much simpler than you think they are. And, if you're starting a new business or you're coming up with a great idea, don't try and build something for everyone, because the likelihood is you'll land with no one. Make something that works for the masses and everyone else will follow, because ultimately, we're all so similar in a world where we concentrate in being different that we naturally gravitate towards other people who we share things with. So absolutely is that.
As evidenced by the echo chambers in social media around the world now.
Yeah.
Yes, the algorithms put you there, but you do tend to gravitate towards people like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it homophily when you see success in others that look like you or sound like you? So I think it's a natural human behavior, really, isn't it? To want other people. Like people,
Well,
as much as they try and say, I'm lonely, I'm an introvert, or I don't talk to people. If there's a room of other introverts, that's the room you walk into.
True. Everyone's looking for their tribe, Samir. Everyone is looking for their own tribe.
Absolutely. So yeah, and it's within that. So don't overcomplicate things. Keep things simple.
How? You give me an example of how we would keep things simple. I mean, you've discussed Tesco taking their 24 million card holders and boiling them down into 5 groups. But how would we keep it simple in our own circles?
Great question. I think it's easy to overthink things, and I think sometimes it's worth just taking things down in their face value of what they are. We all naturally do it, right? Oh, so and so said this, so that means maybe they saw this and they thought this, and that makes me feel like this. We're here, and sometimes your friend just saying your dress looks rubbish is just because your dress looks rubbish. It's nothing else more than that. And we talk about making it count. Just don't spend time dwelling on things that don't matter. I mean, if you take that example a bit further, maybe I should talk about the dresses I wear and maybe the shirts that I wear instead. That either matters to you enough that you'll go and change your shirt, or it doesn't matter enough and you're just going to keep your shirt and keep going on anyway. So rather than spend your time in your head in other people's opinions and thoughts and feelings, just do what feels right to you.
Agreed. Absolutely. More people should hear this. And viewers, listeners, you've heard me say this in other interviews. This is a bloody important point. It's so simple. It is so simple that it might fly over your head. So do yourself a favor. Rewind. Listen to this lesson again. Because I can guarantee you, if you can internalize this, my God, your life is going to be a lot simpler than it has been if you are one of these people that overcomplicates things. Thank you, Samir. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very quick break. 10 lessons will always be free to listen to, but it's not free to make. This takes our blood, sweat, and tears. But you can help. You can help by leaving us a comment, leaving us a review, a positive one if you can, sharing this episode with a friend, telling your friends about 10 lessons learned. Subscribing to this podcast on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Every little bit helps and helps us get more people involved in our community and more people learning these lessons that can make their lives a little wiser, lesson by lesson. So enough of the commercials. Let's get back to our lessons today with our guest, Samir Domah from the UK. Okay, so we're up to lesson number 6. This is interesting, Samir. I'm interested to hear why you've put this down as a lesson. Lesson number 6, do pre-mortems, not post-mortems. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I'm going to do a bit of a punch to my own career here and one of my points later on, but we often wait for the data to make evaluations and see whether something's worked or not. But sometimes before you push go, it's almost just as valuable to look at something. And rather than say in 12 months from now, this failed because, be able to take a step back and go, this will fail because. And just what it allows you to do is just really look at your plans along with another technique called red teaming, which is giving it to someone completely different who's not involved in the project to look at. And really see the fail points that might happen. And I think if you can do that, not saying that something will be a massive success, but you might just reduce your failure rate by, 50%. If you can find a way to look at stuff before it happens rather than evaluating after.
But 50% is huge.
Absolutely. If you think about some of the projects that I've been involved with over the years, you're talking about, 50, 60 million pound projects and products that go on shelf. For every great Coca-Cola product you see in the kitchen somewhere, there's about 10 or 15 other bottles and flavors that didn't quite make it to the shelf. Or much in the same way, you talk about waste rates on shelves in supermarkets of products that didn't quite make the cut, but someone believed in it or someone thought something about it. So, that in a world of cost implications becoming even more, big pressure points as part of the system, and we see, across multiple industries, ways that you can reduce that likelihood of something to fail is really huge. And I guess another supermarket stat for you is 78% of new products that make it to the shelf fail within the first 12 weeks.
That's huge.
It's massive. So it's a massive proliferation of money. So yeah, really learn how to pre-mortem.
But let me add to that. And again, this is what I'm hearing and what I'm taking from this, and plus with my experience. So you correct me if I'm wrong. Pre-mortems are a great idea. I think it's wonderful. However, there are a lot of people that I know who would be paralyzed by the analysis and do nothing. They wait till it's perfect. What do you say to them?
Just press go. Yeah, if you wait till you're perfect, you'll never get off the start line.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it should totally. There's nothing wrong with iterating as you move. As someone once said, jump from the plane and stitch the net on the way down, or stitch the parachute on the way down. It is also a fair analogy. Just take the leap and learn as you go and get the next one right.
Don't be afraid of failure, right? Because you will learn, and then you can adjust and tweak and pivot. Once you have those lessons, once you've learned what is not going to work. But unless you're actually doing it and you fail, you'll never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the point of this lesson is reducing your likelihood to fail, but don't think that failing is a bad thing. Failure is a learning. And I think I gave this analogy to someone else this week of, if you put an address in a satellite navigation and along the way you take the wrong turning, you never go, oh my God, I've failed to get to my destination. You just find another way to get back on the freeway or the motorway and you carry on heading to your destination. Yeah. So that is absolutely what people should do.
That's a beautiful analogy. I love that. I think I'll steal it from you. That's lovely.
So
All right. Let's go to lesson number 7. I like this for a different reason. I'll tell you after you explain it. Lesson number 7. You can learn as much from the little guys as you can from the big guys.
Yeah, I've seen so many people getting to enter a market, or, even as people, we look and we go, the Tony Robbins of the world, that's who I need to model myself on. That's who I need to be. I need to be this peppy guy within a particular way and a particular energy. And in my early part of my career, I was told this a lot of, Samir, you have to be really high energy, because I was in commercial roles. I was, Samir, don't speak at the pace you speak at. And then I found that actually businesses learn more at looking at, new startups or smaller guys who innovated and did things slightly differently and had the agility to turn around and do things like their way. And there was as much to gain from that in terms of the mindset as it was of following one of the bigger guys. And, for myself, then I translate that to, how I carried myself. I actually found that my slower pace, my calm nature made people feel really relaxed in the room, rather than feel they were being sold to or feel that they were being pitched something all the time. And it made for much better conversations in that sense, kind of like a bit of a personality way. But yeah, absolutely. If you're trying to enter somewhere, look at what everyone is doing. Don't just copy what the big boys in the market are doing.
Very true. There's so many different ideas. There's so many different ways of doing things that if you get stuck on one, the chances are you're not going to be as successful as you could have been had you broadened your horizon a bit and watched everybody and just cherry pick the bits that are good. You don't have to come up with anything new. Everything's been invented. So why not use someone else's idea? It's not a big deal. But you've got to keep your eyes open. You've got to keep your mind open. And you've got to look everywhere. So I agree with you that you can always learn. Even if it's how not to do something, you can always learn from what's already happened out there.
I think there's almost a bit of like a 9-box grid in a way that goes, look at good, better, best, and then look at big, medium, small, and using that as a bit of an analysis framework. We'll go, right, here's what the good big guys do, all the way down to the little bad guys, and draw your lessons from there.
Fantastic. Excellent advice. I love that. All right, let's look at lesson number 8. Data is king, but humans are still the queen. I'm confused.
In a world of AI and leaning on AI to do everything and come up with everything for us, and similarly, in the data world of supermarkets, for example, everyone always tries to lean away of making sure the data says everything. And I'm probably going to outdo myself out of a job by what I say next. But it will always, in my opinion, need a human eye to get to the final place. There's a reason why ChatGPT has that disclaimer at the bottom of ChatGPT may make mistakes, so please check what is put out there. As much as I've talked about, leading with data, leading with numbers over the last, however long we've been talking, don't forget the human touch on something, because that's the thing that data and AI and that can't do. So trust your gut and an instinct alongside putting a good foundation there.
I was just about to say, you can't replicate intuition. You can't replicate the intuition that has been built on experience. As long as you've got an open mind, that intuition is good. If your mindset is, but that's the way we've always done it, then expect to fail. But intuition is something that AI does not have at the moment. Whether it will or not, who knows? Who knows what happens in the next 10, 15, 20 years. But right now it doesn't. So data is good. We're still better at the moment.
I think it's a challenge to us to stay better. It's how to stay back. It's an interesting one, actually. Someone used the analogy of when calculators first came out.
Yeah.
No one went, "Oh, we're not going to need maths anymore." We just learned how to adapt to having calculators in our lives, and we use that to make ourselves better and find efficiencies and work that way. And I think in a world of data and AI, it's not about replacing what we do. It's about how do we then encompass that in our daily lives and working to make ourselves better as humans and make sure we still stay on top rather than being ruled by robots, which I think is the fear in most people's minds right now.
Let's go to lesson number 9. Treat your sales cycles like a love marriage. I'll say nothing. I'll leave it to you to explain that one.
I'm hoping with some tinge of knowing what I mean when I say this, a love marriage as opposed to an arranged marriage, I guess, in our culture or my culture. Of sometimes we go with such a desire to talk about the product that we have. We don't put in the time and the effort of things like research of who you're going to talk to and spending the time taking that up. Finding those commonality points that are going to be important to them, making yourself look good and polishing the presentation or what we're talking about, to planning how the meeting might go, to then, sending an email afterwards to go, "Great meeting, nice to meet you." And those, in principle, are kind of the similar lines of dating, right? Before you go out with that pretty person you've met on the internet, you're going to do a bit of research about who they are. Before you go, you're going to make sure you dress well and you smell nice. You're going to turn up looking your best. And ultimately, you're going to spend time listening to them and investing in them as a person. And then hopefully, once the date's over, you send a nice text at the end going, "Hey, it was really nice. Spent some really great time with you. Would like to see you again sometimes." So there's some real direct parallels between a dating cycle or someone you're going to get married to, as much of the same way as when you sell stuff. And some might find the analogy a little bit cringe, but at the same time, I think there's real value in it.
No, I don't find it cringe. I actually, when you were mentioning that, I was thinking back in my early sales career. After every meeting, I would send a postcard, and I had postcards made up specifically to thank you, Samir, and I would handwrite a postcard and I would mail it to the client. And yeah, it worked. They got a thank you from me. This was, I'm not going to say it was pre-email, but it was almost pre-email. But it is like a love marriage. You do need to put the work in. If you want to continue that relationship with that client, I totally agree. But more so, take this lesson more broadly. It goes for everything. It does go for everything. Everything you do, if you put the time and effort into it and show your appreciation, those relationships last and grow and become stronger. So I think it's a great lesson.
You've almost reminded me of a slightly funny story at the same time by saying that. So,
Go ahead.
Though you never know when you're leaving a lasting impression on someone. And I say this from a place, and this is kind of like your postcard piece, right? Of in the moment, someone might have not bought from you, but they might come back and buy from you later on. And I say this because I asked my wife out, and she actually didn't say yes until 6 years later. And now we're married 15 years. So it's much in the same vein of, again, from the very beginning of our conversation today, is put good out in the world and good will find a way of coming back to you. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely.
I truly believe that. All right, look, Samir, we've come up to your 10th lesson. That's gone pretty quick. So let's look at, and after this, I have one more for you, but let's look at lesson number 10. So lesson number 10, the best DEI programs have an exit plan. I'm a little confused about this one. What do you mean they have an exit plan?
So I'm a big advocate for DEI, by the way. I've set up quite a few networks, either, women in the workplace or race diversity pieces. And often people who aren't part of those groups can feel quite threatened and not really, want to be a part of it or support it. But the truth of it is it should always be lensed in a way that if you do your DEI successfully, you get to a world where everyone integrates and works well and considers everyone's culture and everyone's nuances as a second nature, at which point you don't need a DEI group. So
Correct.
if you're running a DEI group without an exit plan, you're just causing segregation. If you run one with an exit plan, then you're working towards a goal that means everyone's the same and everyone's equal, and you see people for people and not for their characteristics.
That's so true. That is so true. The vitriol that's out there across the world, and Australia is no different, but the vitriol that is out there against diversity and inclusion, it's just from people who don't understand. But the point you just made, if you don't have that exit plan, you are just creating segregation. I've never thought of it like that, but you are absolutely correct. That is powerful. So how do we go about creating an exit plan? I mean, it's one thing to say, yep, everyone should see, beyond race, beyond culture. Everyone should accept everyone as a human being, which I totally agree with. But how do we do it?
Yeah, so I think there's two key factors behind it, and they're kind of interlaced with one each other ultimately. One is allyship is massive. Like, I always give the analogy of, I guess women or gender diversity in the workplace, right? There's a massive underindex of women in powerful positions. But if men keep sitting on the door and not letting them through, then you're just going to take forever to try and break down the door of getting through. So having allies in a space, men that will advocate for women and, people of not colour, advocating for people of colour, as we see in the UK, for example, it makes that thing harder. So allies really help speed up that journey to kind of everyone being in the same room, and you kind of almost don't need the walls and the doors because you're in the same room. And then the other one is, I think actually DEI works two ways. It's not just about, if we take, culture, for example, it's not just about enforcing one way culture. It's also about that group absorbing in the culture of the other room.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
And I think that is then what's, it's almost like mixing a bag of ingredients together, right? The more you can, put your chocolate chips and your flour and your water in, by the end of it, you just get chocolate chip cookie, and no one really notices the ingredients that went in before. It's all about working to a state of, that chocolate chip cookie, if you will.
Look, I love it. I don't know if I'm ever going to see that in my lifetime. I hope I do. I used to believe we're on the path to it, and then for some reason over the last 10 years, it just started to splinter. I hope we go back to it, and I hope we get there, and all the elements that want to fight it grow up and learn.
Yeah, I think without getting too much into politics, I think that would be a lesson 11 otherwise.
Yeah, as much as we want to, and as much as we all have opinions, we try very, very hard not to be political on this show. But there's enough of that out there. What we try to do is just share wisdom. And I think that is, lesson number 10 is a great lesson to strive for. Strive for an exit plan for DEI, which at the end of the day, to me anyway, means that we've achieved it. That's the exit plan, that everyone is comfortable with it. So you don't need it anymore. And that, you get into a role because you're the best person for the role, regardless of your background. So I wish one day, and I wish I lived long enough to see it happen, Samir, I really do. Before we wrap up, let me ask you this. So with all your years of experience, with everything you've learned, with all the wisdom you just shared with us today, have you unlearned anything in your lifetime?
I've unlearned that I strive for a place that I need to matter the most in the room. Yeah, I grew up in a commercial world, in a bit of a corporate hierarchy where you think you need to be the loudest voice.
Yeah.
And I found that the right voice is often more powerful than the loudest voice. And you can do that from a place of quiet. And I've done that from an understated perspective and landed far more because I was authentic rather than being something I wasn't. So, yeah, absolutely learned that. Or unlearned that, if you
That's
will.
a very, very powerful lesson. Let me ask you this. Based on what you've unlearned, how liberating was that?
Incredible. It's when you're not being who you are, you live in a pressure cooker, and eventually it catches up with you.
Yeah.
You can think you're the most steely person in the world, but it will get you. And being able to be yourself, like you say, is liberating. It takes the lid off the pressure cooker.
It really does.
Yeah.
That is a great thing to unlearn. It really is. So to our audience, that is very powerful. I would strongly urge you all to take a moment and think about the fact that if you're still striving to be the loudest voice, the biggest chest thumper, whatever, is that really what you want? Is that going to make you happy? Or are you under pressure? Are you in that pressure cooker that Samir just mentioned? And if you are, think about just backing off. It's a thought. You don't have to do it. It's a thought. Samir, this has been a wonderful, wonderful chat with you. I really, really appreciate you making time to be with us today. Do you have anything that you would like to leave for our audience, or how can they find you? How can they contact you?
Oh, for sure. So I'm out there spreading bits of wisdom on Instagram, which is just at Samir_Domah, or simply Samir Domah on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, look, I'm just out there trying to make the world a better place, and hopefully I can take a few other people on the journey with me. So jump in the car, let's get lost together and let's find our way together.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put those links in the show notes, and we'll finish here today. You've been listening to 10 Lessons Learned. A big thank you to today's guest, Samir Domah, for sharing his incredible insights and lessons with us. And this podcast is supported, as always, by the Professional Development Forum and by listeners like you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's lessons. As I said before, leave a comment, let us know where you're listening from or watching from, and which lesson resonated the most with you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a lesson that could change your life. Thanks for tuning in to 10 Lessons Learned, where we're making the world a little wiser, lesson by lesson. And remember, you can learn as much from the little guys as you can from the big guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.